out, guys. Rock music. Pick up the guitar for special effect. I will have significantly much less head knowledge about rock music, even compared to classical music. I've just spent a lot less time in the study of it. There's not a lot of schooling for it. There's a lot more schooling for classical and jazz music than there is rock music. Even if you have schools like Berklee School of Music or whatever contemporary music academies you have today, and there's still a lot less academic rigor that is associated with rock music. What I can give you is a sort of my history growing up, having listened to a lot of rock music. I can talk to you about the kinds of rock music I grew up with for hours. I just nerd out and be a geek. Definitely the biggest music lover and musician that has had the biggest impact on me is my dad, the great late Lito Valdez. Rest in peace. I just remember growing up, whenever we'd go to road trips, especially to my grandparents' house in Baguio City, back in the Philippines, we would have rock music nonstop in the car. So I can remember hours and hours, especially back in the day when going to Baguio took forever. I remember hours and hours of Boston, Toto, Chicago, The Police, so Sting, really old school Sting, even like Dave Matthews. My dad was just a huge music lover, but so much of what he loved was rock. Later on, he would actually introduce me to my first ever Joe Satriani record, even though I didn't know that was a Joe Satriani record back when I was 8 years old. I just remember a lot of fast guitar riffs. Later on, I would discover who that was in my high school years. And then there was a distinct period of time in my childhood when my parents decided, okay, it's time to listen to real music. And so my parents tried as much as they could to decrease the amount of exposure I had to pop music and any other kind of music. And so they handed me a Bach and a Mozart album, and that's all I listened to for quite a while. And a bunch of other classical music. Basically they went, stop listening to the radio, here's a Bach and a Mozart greatest hit CD. And that was a big chunk of my childhood for a while. And that kind of led up to my development as a violinist at around 9 years old. And then lo and behold, around I think 12 years old or something, in a violin camp, nonetheless, I was introduced to Blink 182, and that was kind of like reintroduction to rock music. Even though it's pop punk, if we're going to be strict about it, that was kind of like, I was reopened to rock music. And that started my very, very long pop punk / emo phase. Throughout my late grade school and high school years, that's all I listened to. Blink 182, Green Day, Sum 41, Under Oath, Say Ocean, Taking Back Sunday, The Ataris, Bring Me the Horizon, August Burns Red, Halifax, what have you, those bands. New Found Glory. I love New Found Glory. Late high school, like my junior year of high school, my friends in the music organization that I was a part of, called the Ateneo Symphonic Ensemble, one of them was a great guitarist. His name was Carlos Cesena. What's up, man? He introduced me to Paul Gilbert. And there was another guitarist actually there, Paulo Cibulo. Hey, what's up, man? He also introduced me to Paul Gilbert. And that was the first time I realized, oh my gosh, there is so much he can do with this thing that actually kind of sounds as virtuosic as a violin. You couldn't stop me from listening to rock music at that point and trying to get better at guitar especially. When I first heard Paul Gilbert play Scarified, that was it. I was like, I want to play guitar, dude. I want to know how much I can do with this thing. And not just the fast of all the squeals. That kind of a deal. Not even strumming, and it goes on forever. Especially when you start combining distortion with it, you can do all kinds of things. The shred era began in my life, and I'm still learning a lot about shred. Shred is the fancy... No, it's not fancy at all. It's the slang term for fast playing. So any of this, for example, that's a easy shred lick. Anything like that at all is shred. So Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, John Petrucci, Joe Satriani. I eventually got to Greg Howe. He was my kind of gateway to jazz fusion and eventually really jazz, which is another genre I'll talk about at a later time. And I haven't stopped listening to rock music since. And today, I still harken back to classic rock, some Boston, Toto, The Police a lot. And I still listen to my pop punk a ton. I haven't stopped listening to pop punk. But the majority of the rock music, and honestly, the majority of the music I listen to on a daily basis is kind of like progressive, metal-y, technically difficult to play kind of stuff. That's how my taste in rock music has evolved basically over the years. So from like old school rock to like the pop rock of the early 2000s, the 2000-2010 decade really. And now things like Animals as Leaders, Dream Theater, progressive rock stuff that makes you think. And if you listen too much to it, it can actually give you a really big headache. What else? I kind of like Tesseract. And I just discovered Carnival. The rock bands that make you think. I really dig those guys today. So yeah, it's my rock music taste, and that's where I'm at as far as rock music taste today. What are your thoughts on listening to rock music?
In what context? As a Christian or as a musician? Or,
oh, I love it. It just got way deeper.
So in what context?
Both.
As a Christian, I think God is the one who inspires music, and I learned a long time ago that style is just for us. It's just for humans. God doesn't care what style you play, but I do think there's a spirit to music, and I think the content drives that spirit. So I have no problem listening to rock music that is content neutral or about relationships or something like that.
Like love, like a love song.
Yeah, like love song, or someone's trying to express some pain. Like I can identify with that. But if it turns like kind of evil or like the dark, then obviously there's a problem with it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. As a Christian, I think people get bent out of shape for that too much.
Okay. What are some of your favorite bands?
Oh man, I have so many. Like I'll start when I was like. When I was a kid, I went through the hugest like Led Zeppelin thing. I had like all of their albums, so I love like classic rock like that. And then nowadays, I love like Coldplay and John Mayer Trio, that kind of blues stuff.
I love John Mayer Trio too.
Yeah, Colony House is so good. I feel like they have a really fresh sound. And there's a lot of bands that sound like that now. Like that whole beach '60s vibe is kind of coming, '80s thing is coming back. So.
I've nerded out with you.
Oh, awesome.
I remember that.
Yes.
I remember you talking about Colony House and a lot of bands like that. So that's so cool.
They're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I was so hungry at the end of today that I went to Taco Bell and got myself a 12-pack. Two things that I want to dispel that are like commonly held notions about rock music. First one is that it is for the uneducated and for those who are kind of like their taste in music is not really that high up. I grant you that most rock music is not really going to be considered high listening ever. Today, a lot of rock music has a lot of complexity to it. As far as rock musicians being mostly uneducated, that's just not true. You just have to look at the band members of Queen, for example. Brian May is an astrophysicist. Freddie Mercury studied piano. We have people who are in rock bands that are extremely highly trained. Jordan Rudess of Dream Theater went to Juilliard. John Petrucci went to Berklee School of Music. Steven Wilson, another rock musician I listen to, completely focused and completely in touch with his craft, extremely disciplined, always practicing, always in the studio. I grant you that a lot of rock music was geared towards appeasing the pop sensibilities, especially back maybe in the 80s, but really today especially, rock music is taking a very, very cool direction as far as musical depth and technicality. It is challenging for the ear to listen to. The second thing I want to talk about, it is not a challenging art form to listen to. I grant you that it probably would not be the way to communicate finesse in music, but that's exactly why I like the genre. In everyday life, the way you might try to get someone's attention right away is if you shout at them. And this is what rock music is good at. It's loud, it's aggressive, it definitely is, it gets your attention. When you think of classical and jazz music, you're not really thinking about loud and aggressive. Even the darkest and heaviest classical music will not match the sound of this. Nothing is more aggressive than an electric guitar with distortion on. I don't think so anyway. In this current musical landscape, still, nothing sounds angrier, nothing sounds more powerful, nothing sounds more majestic and aggressive sometimes than the sound of a really, really cranked up, high gain, high volume electric guitar. That's why I like rock music. It's full of energy, it's awesome, and it catches your attention. I would love to know how you listen to rock music, or any other genre for that matter, in the comments below. Thanks for listening in and for hearing out my 2 cents on things. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. My name is Joe Valdez. With much love, bye.